Everyone, this is Rohit from License Mastery Institute, and thrilled to have Ayush Jaiswal, who's a co-founder and CEO of Pesto Tech, which is an intensive training program dedicated to upskilling India's 5 million software engineers and giving them access to borderless job opportunities. He's also a Kairos Fellow and serves as an advisor for Startup Grant India. Welcome to the show, Ayush.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. So you have a very interesting journey because you started you got started into startups at a very early age. What inspired you to start Pesto Tech, and what got you interested into startups?
I think so I came to Delhi. I belong to Varanasi, right? And I've always loved programming at an early age in school. I used to code a lot, and I just wanted to learn how to build apps, right? That's it. And I came to Delhi for that reason. I joined the college, and I wanted to learn how to build apps, but I did not really had the best of the experiences with respect to college. After 6 months into college, I really started feeling frustrated, and I was not really learning fast enough, and that was concerning me. I looked at the curriculum and I just realized that the whole curriculum, if I sort of go on that path, the pace of my learning would not be as high. And I came to, like, a fundamental problem which I realized exists is that tech changes really fast. Every couple of years there is something else which is cool, and because of that, it's just impossible for education institutions to keep up with that pace, right? So I saw a massive gap between academia and corporates, and I think tech education needs reinvention, and that's why I started Pesto.
Very interesting. I think a lot of people have talked about how education needs a reinvention, but I'm really glad to see you building such a great company. But how's Pesto Tech different from others in this space? Because you not only are preparing students, but you also help students get jobs. Correct me if I'm wrong.
100%. I think the larger problem which we are trying to solve is that we realized, at a point I was visiting US, and I took a Uber ride to the conference. I was visiting there for one of the conferences, and I realized that the Uber driver wanted to be a programmer, and this is way back, like 3 to 4 years back, and
Oh,
I realized that I could code, but once I got to know about how much valued engineers are in SF, it just blew my mind, and that's when I realized that there is so much talent which we have in our country, but they just won't get access to certain opportunities across the world, not just in SF, right? And that was the sort of problem which really excited me as well, and I've always been concerned about education and corporates being far, and you have to bring them together. And I realized that if we play it smartly, we'll be able to do it, right? So I think uh, getting people up to pace, bringing them up to standards, and getting them enough soft skills, and then giving them access to the market opportunities is something which we thought would make total sense. So yeah, that's how we ended up helping people get job opportunities as well.
interesting. And what do you see are the current challenges in traditional academia? A lot of students do look at colleges as uh, as a credential, or they need to be there for 4 years to really learn through. Can somebody learn in say 6 to 9 months about a programming language and get a job? But I mean, that is what Pesto Tech has been trying to do. But what do you think are the current challenges in traditional academia? And any thoughts on what the national education policy of 2020, where they have brought some changes not only in technical education but in other sectors as well?
Absolutely. I think I wish it happened during my time as well. I think it's brilliant. I
Right.
love the system, and I definitely feel that you can learn on your own pace. I think it's just like very natural that depending upon who has interest in what, they should be able to run at their own pace in those things, right? Like it's like if I'm in school, and I have interests in academia only, and different people have different interests. So it's like, because I have sort of higher amount of interest in certain thing, I should be able to run faster, right? So I think that saves a lot of time. It's much more efficient, and people will really realize their true potential that way as well. So I think, yeah, I mean, super excited by the education policy for sure, and especially that the change is happening, and I feel that that's great. To your other part of the question, that why do we feel, it's not about if we feel, it's about why do we feel that you can learn things in 6 to 9 months instead of 4 years. I think it's basically getting rid of inefficiencies, right? I think tech education, especially, as I said earlier, that it needs reinvention, and the most basic thing is that tech education is only 20 years old, right? Like, internet itself is not very old. And as tech education came in, we tried to take it and fit it into an older concept of learning, which is 400 years old. The whole concept of going to a building, studying for 4 years, and thinking that the knowledge which you accumulate there will be relevant throughout your life. The relevance of that knowledge is not sort of there anymore, because of whatever you learn, a big part of that will change in 2 to 5 years from now. So that is why I think tech education needs to be a lot more continuous in nature, and the basics and things which are necessary for you to learn how to learn, or for you to have the boilerplate to be able to learn, is actually much less than what we think it is.
Right. And do you also see, students who've passed out from Pesto Tech coming back and taking up other courses, which increases the, lifetime value of the customer who's there with Pesto Tech?
No, I think, I mean, once you are a Pesto person, you are a Pesto person. Pesto Fellows, a lot of
Okay.
people think that Pesto is a 3 month program or a 4 month program. It's not true. We actually continue to support people even after they graduate. That those 16 weeks are necessary because we feel that getting them up to pace is important in the beginning. Like, you need that acceleration, but after that, we continue to invest in our community, and I think in coming years we would be a lot more aggressive with it.
Okay. And from what I understand is that you work on ISA model where you don't charge the students for the course, but if they make an X amount of value and above that, so you they have to pay you over the period of three years, which is very similar to what the Lambda school model is. What were some of the challenges you faced when you were trying to build something like that? Because Indians are very sensitive uh, to a prestige which a certificate or a degree gives you, or they're very particular about the institute that they're coming out from. But what are some of the challenges are, because this is very interesting what you're trying to build, but how were you able to convince software engineers in India to be a part of Pesto?
Got it. I think there are multiple questions I see here. I think first of all, I'll clarify on ISA, that why it's beautiful, where it comes from, what's the history, right? I was just writing a piece on that as well. ISA is actually not new. It's more than 50 years old. There's a paper which came out in, I think, 1973, which said role of governments in education, right? The whole discussion was around that who should pay for a student's education. Should a government pay? Because if you're educated, you actually affect the society around you, right? So is this a public thing? And a lot of governments
Yeah.
actually do that, right? The second way is that you pay for your education yourself, but the government gives you loan, right? And you pay it over a period of time. And the third model is that parents pay for your education, but that creates a problem, that when parents pay for your education, they are unable to save for their retirement, right? And that kind of like creates a cycle of people who face trouble towards the end, right? So there were different kinds of models which came up, and one of the solutions which was proposed in that paper was the following: that education institutions' success should be measured by the success of their students, and their incentives should be tied to the incentives of the student, right? So whenever that person goes through any education institution, the institution will get a fixed percentage of their income over a fixed amount of time period, and that would only and
Right.
only happen when they make money over a certain threshold, right? So this was the concept which was
Right.
proposed back in the day. If anyone wants to explore, I think, role of governments in education, great paper, that's where you should start, I think, if you want to understand ISS. The second point is that Yale University actually started this as well, and they've been doing it for years, for decades. Um, it somehow did not gain popularity because I think applying ISA is just a business model, right? And as I said earlier, that just like SaaS found a beautiful way to sort of make payments happen via subscriptions, right? Increase the LTV of the customer. It's a win-win for both the
Right.
parties. Low commitment, yada yada yada, right? So I think. The similar situation happened here. It's just a way to make payments. For universities, it may not work because it just requires a lot of upfront investment when it comes to that, right? When online education came in, I think 5 years ago or so, then this concept gained a lot more popularity because you could deliver value in without investing a lot in infrastructure, right? And then that really ended up creating a win-win situation for all the parties, right? At Pesto, we do the same. Like, our focus is to always create a win-win situation for everyone. How can we provide value to Pesto Fellows? And Pesto Fellows are people who are actually sort of really good developers who have a good amount of experience, and they're really looking for the next thing in their career, right? And then we basically help them
Right.
accelerate and get exposure to the global economy, and that ends up getting them into companies which have a certain kind of culture, more complex computing problems, etc. How do we convince them? I think we convince them by transparency, like just by being extremely transparent. I think smart people understand that how we are trying to make it happen. We are extremely transparent in our approach. We're trying to share what is, skin in the game for us, why they win, and why
Right.
the companies win as well, right? So I think we are constantly trying to find or create a situation in which all three of us win. So yeah, I think just communicating that to the
Correct.
developers helps.
Right. And you're also helping the students, get jobs, which is another of your business model, which is little similar to what TopTal is, but you're not just limiting yourself to freelancing projects. So is that model only for those who have passed out from Pesto Tech, or is it for anybody who can register on your site and start applying for jobs?
So it's only for those who are Pesto Fellows. Now we basically I think TopTal and there are many other companies. I would not get into naming all of them, but I think it's just
Correct.
recruitment industry, right?
Right.
Like, I think there
Right.
was some 500,000 open job positions in US alone. In the pre-pandemic world. In the post-pandemic world, that number will increase because we just need so many more software developers. The supply is just not there, right? And I don't think that you were sort of we were talking earlier today that about who would be your ideal competitor and things like that. I think unemployment is our ideal competitor, right? There is just so much to be done. There are so many open job positions out there. There are so many credible, amazing developers in India, in Europe, in different parts of the world, and I feel that there is a massive opportunity lying there and connecting all of them, right? And the way I feel the market will change is that with the world moving remote, I expected all of this to happen over 2 to 3 years, but we just kind of had to swallow it in one go. But what's going to happen is that as the companies go remote, yes, the world's talent is at your disposal, but it also comes with a bunch of challenges, right? Challenges like how do you filter people? Like, the cost of interviewing is actually going to go very high, right? Software developers don't really enjoy interviewing, and that is just non-productive, engineering time, right? So I think companies would not want to sort of interview a lot of people, And if they open up a job position which is open to remote, they will probably get bombarded with applications, and filtering will become a massive problem. So I think these challenges are there. We are trying to solve those. I think we are trying to build the fastest hiring experience possible, and we are trying to get down to less than 72 hours. Like, our ideal scenario looks like a company gets in touch with us, within 72 hours they have their ideal guy, right? So I think that's something which we are achieving.
Interesting. And after I mean, since we recording during the COVID times, what I've realized is a lot of top tier and elite colleges would survive because not many people would want to give $50,000 for virtual classes. But how do you think universities can attract students? Because a lot of colleges and universities are going to struggle. A lot of students would not want to go back to colleges. They would want to take a gap year or maybe build something on their own. But do you think there's going to be a lot of unbundling of education because all these colleges do offer education, network, credentials. But what are your thoughts on unbundling of education and how can universities attract students, especially when it comes to medical courses or say law courses? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm quite incompetent in that. Like, I've absolutely no idea about how the medical industry works. But
Right.
you know, I just think universities is something I don't understand that much. I also think that they'll be fine. Like, there are so many people out there, and who need good education. Like, education is something which, there's just, as I said earlier, that there are like so many open job positions that, there is just supply is not there. Similarly, because the supply is not there, we just
Correct.
need a lot more good education institutions, right? I think the good ones will not face any problem at all.
Right.
Regarding streaming education, I do think there was a very funny thing going on around streaming and comparing, the universities with streaming services,
Right.
which was fun. But I think they'll be fine as the sort of um, the world opens up. I think there's also a lot of value which comes in, apart from knowledge itself. I think it's the environment, it's the social sort of life which you have. I'm again, like, I don't really have an expertise in that because I didn't really spend a lot of time there, but I hear that people
Right.
love their college life and friends they make there, etc. So yeah, I think I don't really have a
Right.
strong opinion on how they'll survive or not. I think they'll definitely exist, the good ones.
Right.
There's a need for them for at
Right.
least next 30 to 40 years.
Correct.
But a big part of that, a big chunk of that will definitely move to new things, which will happen over the next decade or so.
Correct. And do you think the ISA model can work in other verticals as well? Because a lot of institutes, ask you to pay 30, 40, $50,000 for a year. It's started happening in a lot of colleges here in India also, but there's no promise for jobs. But here in your model, you're saying, you study from us. Once you get a job or an X amount of money, that's when you pay back, which is a very interesting model where you taking accountability
Hmm.
for the course content. Obviously,
Yeah.
the student has to study, but do you think the ISA model can work in other verticals as well?
I think ISAs can replace loans in general, you know, uh,
Right.
at a lot of places. It's again the applicability of it. It's again, it'll take sort of a lot of time because there's a lot of uh, you know these industries move slow, right? But I think the use cases, if I think about it, let's say, the medical industry, you had some situation in which you can't afford a very expensive operation like a liver transplant or something like that. Or there are a lot of
Right.
underprivileged people who unfortunately can't afford a lot of things, right? And in medical, you don't even have to think, like, you would do it, right? Like, so many people face trouble because they don't get access to loans, right? So I think if you just tie a percentage of their salary, and there's an arrangement in which you basically take that for next whatever years, I think that really helps in sort of tackling that problem. And similarly, in real estate, you want to buy a house, if you have a certain credit score and a certain amount of credibility with your employer, great, like no need to get a loan. Sort of, so the person who is actually giving the debt also feels secure because they know that they'll take the fixed percentage of their salary from whatever sources. And I think a lot of magic can happen there for sure.
Correct. And do you think the remote work is temporary, or do you think even after the pandemic gets over, it's going to be there for a long term, especially in context to Indian companies where they were not very comfortable with the remote work, but now we are all forced to work remotely. But what do you think? Do you think it's a very temporary phase which is going to go over after 2 or 3 years?
No, absolutely not. I think I was actually thinking that it'll take 2 to 3 years for the world to adopt remote work, but it happened pretty quickly. It's very hard to go back. And again, I think my world is very narrow, right? Still, my world is very limited to the tech world, and I keep mentioning that. I understand that there are so many things in which going remote is extremely difficult. So I'm not making a generic comment, but I'm making a comment for people in the tech universe. I think tech will be the first to adopt remote work, and then it will slowly move to other industries. But I think for tech, there is no going back. I have most of the people I know in San Francisco are already moving out because the rent prices are highest there, right? And people just feel uncomfortable. So many people I know in India, who just want to work remote because they are with their families now. They are working from their hometowns, etc., and they're happy, right? Pesto has had so many, graduates who have been working from Coimbatore, Darjeeling, Varanasi, different places since last 2 3 years, and they're extremely happy, right? And they're satisfied and they're taking care of their family. And India is a very family oriented country. Like the culture is like that, right? My mom says that I should just go through your own program and come back to Varanasi, right? I'm waiting for that day to go back as well, right? So I think when top talent wants to sort of go remote, it'll be very hard for companies to not do that. We saw that pattern from the likes of best companies in the world, right? Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I feel that trend is going to continue. It's very hard to go back. Like my expectation was that we would have small to mid cap companies go remote over next 2 to 3 years, but now even large cap companies have gone remote, and I just feel it's just too good to go back. And again, like I'll specify here that when I say remote work, I mean remote work. There are different things which people confuse with. There is remote work, right, in which you can work from a co-working space, you can work from a cafe, etc. Go out, meet your friends, blah blah blah, right? Then there is work from home, in which you are at home and you're working there. And then the third one is work from pandemic, right? In which you can't see anyone, you're very unhappy, and you're just struggling with your social life. So I think it's important to differentiate between these three. I think remote work will survive. Work from pandemic will probably not.
Right, interesting. And do you think in the last couple of months have you seen a rise of Indian software engineers getting placed in global companies, be it US, Europe? Do you think that is increased, or do you think that is really brought in a lot of competition across all the companies?
I think there's a massive trend, not just in India, but across the world. And it's happening in Ukraine, Africa, Latin America, everywhere, right? Like, as I said earlier, that there was always a shortage of supply, a shortage of people who can do great work. And when the world opened up, you just have this talent pool which is there. How do you get to that talent pool is a massive opportunity, right? Like people don't know yet. I think there's a lot of innovation to be done there, but I definitely feel that not just foreign companies hiring Indian developers, but Indian companies hiring Indian developers. I mean, we are just looking at it from a global context, but you can also think that there are a lot of developers in Bangalore. A lot of great companies in Bangalore, Mumbai actually struggle to hire developers as well, right? And now when the borders have opened up and you can hire anyone from anywhere, there are a lot of people in Jaipur and in different Calcutta, etc., different parts of the country who are getting access to those opportunities as well.
Right. Correct. And what are the most in-demand languages which students have taken up from Pesto Tech? And in your view, a young listener who's still in his college or in his school wants to learn more about coding. What do you think are the top languages which they should take up?
Got it. I think Pesto Tech, it's majorly been JavaScript, full stack
Okay.
JavaScript. We focus on
Right.
React and Node. But apart from that, looking at the global trend, I think JavaScript, Python, and Golang are the three most popular sort of languages, with React and Angular being popular in front end.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's there. But I think um, I would recommend to understand the languages before you actually jump into it. Like just doing what is the next shiny thing is not really a good choice. I think just looking at what the language offers and what do you actually sort of what's your style of work, how do you enjoy doing, what is the kind of work you're looking to do, and then making a decision is probably a smarter choice.
Got it. And Pesto Tech came into news recently because you were able to get in Rahul from Swiggy on board as the other co-founder. How did that happen? And how's the team shaping up? And what is Rahul's part in helping out Pesto
Got it. It's very interesting. So every interview I get asked this question. I think my go-to answer is going to be that I'll let Rahul tell that now.
Yeah.
That's my best way to dodge it. But a simple answer would be that we have been friends. He was our angel last year, and in fact, all three founders of Swiggy were our angel. And
Oh,
I met all of them in like a 30-minute meeting, and we really got together pretty well from the first meeting, and then we used to catch up every now and then. So we were really good friends, right? And I think we are actually blessed to have him because sort of uh, the world was falling apart. We knew that the opportunity is there, but it was a very sort of intense time. And I think he really is passionate about doing something for developers, and he really associates himself with the mission. And he used to advise us earlier and help us out in general with strategy, etc. And I think because of his passion, I think this happened. Not because I am a magician. It is because of his passion, right? And I think it's really important to understand that it's not as complex as people think. If you
right.
just love if you love doing something in longer scheme of things, like 10 years down the line, if Pesto becomes a public company, and
Wow.
now would be a very very early stage, right? It doesn't matter how things end up sort of at an early stage. And I think he's adding massive value. I have so much to learn from him. I have evolved in last 3 months in a massive way as well. And I think we have built a really good leadership team. We can now see how sort of Pesto's approach is changing, and I think that is really adding a lot of value with respect to ramping up the quality of the program.
Right. Obviously, you're solving a big problem, and you're doing really well when it comes to solving tech education. But I want to I read somewhere on Twitter that it is Y Combinator and not Lambda School, which is unbundling the education. Do you think learning schools like Lambda School, An Academy, Pesto Tech, can they be unbundled education, because we've seen unbundling of education to happen. Obviously, Y Combinator has done a massive job, but what are your thoughts on that, on
Well,
accelerator versus learning schools?
I mean, you've included Pesto as well, so I'll say they'll kill it. Like they'll totally revolutionize education. But I think all of the names you took and many more, right, are doing some really really inspiring work. I think education as an industry, there are a lot of people who saw it early. In next 10 years, we were expecting massive growth. Now the numbers we were expecting in 10 years is actually going to happen in 3 years, right?
Oh,
And that is massive. And I think each one of the companies you named and many more operate in very different market segments. Like somebody operates in the test prep segment, somebody sort of creates more software developers, somebody accelerates, their career at a different stage, so on and so forth. I think there's a space for a lot more people, either for these people to become a lot bigger, and I just feel that the market is just so huge that we just need a lot more of people looking into education. The next point which you mentioned, which I'm a big fan of, Y Combinator, right? So I grew up being a PG fan. Like I've always taken Paul Graham's blog as my Bible, and I've really loved it. I've followed everything which he talked about and things like that. And then I came across Y Combinator and checked out Startup School, and I had the experience to sort of see how the program works with Innovate as well. One of my really good friends, Ritesh, runs this co-working space which was in the program. I really feel that the learning which they would have over the 3-month time period is actually a lot more than what they would in a business school. And again, I haven't been to a business school, so my opinions are biased. But I think the way things are shaping up, Y Combinator again is very, very new. And I think if I was given a choice, I would pick Y Combinator over Harvard any day. So I think
Right.
it's really, really
If you try to
inspiring.
build a company.
Yeah.
Correct. And in the last couple of months, we've seen a massive exit from White Hat Junior to Byju's. Do you think we'll get to see a lot more exits, especially in the education space, where you have SaaS-like margins? And can you also foresee, big public companies, especially, where we all foresee Byju's to come out with their own public IPO in the next couple of years? But do you think there's a massive opportunity in the edtech space now?
Oh, 100%. And I would focus less on exits. I would focus more on sort of IPOs, right?
Right.
I think great companies are getting built. People have realized the potential which Indian education system has, Indian education market has, and I think there are a lot more IPO companies coming your way. Education is as the industry in general is quite awesome. It's sustainable. The numbers add up, and I think it's profitable from a long term perspective as well. We have already seen so many companies prove that, and I'm just excited, right? I'm sure there is a lot more for me to learn, a lot more which I don't understand. But I think, looking at it from this point of view, it's massive. Like, and I'm actually more excited about Indian education companies going global. I think that is something which excites me a lot. And for example, you mentioned White Hat Junior. It's phenomenal, right? I was so happy to see that. And I was so happy to see their penetration in US, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. So I think more and more companies are going to do that, and we will realize the true potential when we actually have a lot more companies going IPO and becoming a lot more larger.
Correct. I quickly want to do the top three. Do you have any favorite business book?
Oh, there's a lot of them, but I think I'll actually choose this one. There's a book called The Barcelona Way, right? For some reason, I have a bias for that book. It talks about how do you build a high performance culture in organizations, and the example is taken of Barcelona Football Club, and how the coach built that culture. And I really love that book. I think it's one of my favorites on culture. So.
Nice. We'll put that in the show notes. If you could go back in time when you started building a Pesto Tech, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
I would sleep more. I think there was a time last year, our entire team, I think we are fortunate to have some people who are very, very hardworking people, and we just enjoy doing crazy things. But for a long time, we actually ran our classes from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So all of our employees, all of our students who are Pesto graduates actually studied from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., which is insane to think about in retrospect, right? So I think, yeah, I would just sleep more. I think I would take care of my health more, and encourage others to do the same. I think that's one mistake I made.
Correct. And do you have any favorite online tool, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
Oh, there's again a lot of them, but I think in terms of productivity, I enjoy Superhuman a lot. It's the
Oh,
email client. It's really fast, and I love that. And there's another one I'm having fun with. I can actually uh, show off a little bit here.
sure.
the camera, which is pretty amazing. There you
Oh,
go.
nice.
So I think it's pretty cool to give presentations. You can sort of add a screen, share, sort of and
Oh,
talk
interesting.
on the background. That's my desktop. So yeah, I think you can talk about that. You can do these things. It's basically making use of Zoom backgrounds
Yeah,
and
yeah.
doing funny things, and you can be silly and sort of do these things. It's pretty fun.
It's interesting. Well, what's the name of that?
It's called so that you can say it using sort of while having lunch as well. I think the founder of Evernote built this.
Oh,
It's
nice.
it's it's pretty it's pretty awesome. Still at an early stage. They've released their beta, but yeah, it's double M H double M.
Oh, nice. We'll put that in the show notes. Ayush, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Pesto Tech?
I mean, my email. I think that's the best, which works. I'm pretty active there.
Correct. It's often said that wisdom does not come from age; it comes from awareness. It's really a privilege to speak to somebody who's so young and so ambitious. And best of luck for your company, what you're trying to build out here from India. And thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us.
आपके मुंह में घी शक्कर sir. Thank you. Good spending time. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, appreciate it.